The sky burned red as two moons hovered above a broken world. Jira ran through sharp black rocks, holding her child close to her chest. Her second child followed behind, small feet stumbling over the dry, cracked ground. The wind howled like a dying beast carrying the sound of machines behind them. Yurnak drones, cold and heartless, were hunting them. Jira was not always a runaway. She was once a respected scientist in the Yurnak Empire. Her people were known for intelligence, power, and order, but not kindness. Feelings were seen as weakness, love, laughter. Fear, these things were crimes in the Yurnak world. Jira made one mistake. She gave birth to twins. When the children cried, smiled, or hugged her, her people watched in disgust. They said the children were broken. They said Jira had failed their perfect society. She was taken to the council. Cold voices echoed in the great white hall. You have created emotional beings. The judge said, this is a violation of Yurnak code. Another added, Jira begged, not for herself, but for her children. But the council showed no mercy. They marked her with the symbol of exile. She and her children were sent to a dead planet, to live or die alone. Now she ran from the past. Each breath burned her lungs. Her children were hungry, tired, and scared. Still, they didn't cry. They knew their mother was trying to protect them. As the sun vanished, Jira reached a small cave. She hid inside with her children. She listened to the buzzing sound of drones passing above. Her daughter Lyra hugged her tightly. Her son Kale whispered, "Are we safe, Mother?" Jira nodded, even though she didn't believe it. She had no food, no weapons, and no one to help her. She looked at her children. They were so full of feeling. Their smiles warmed her heart. Their tears broke it. They were everything the Yurnak hated, and everything Jira loved. As night fell, a strange light appeared in the sky. It wasn't a Yurnak ship, it was something else. Jira crawled to the edge of the cave and looked up. A ship was landing, not sleek and silver like Yurnak ships. This one was round, a little damaged, but alive with color and light. It landed slowly, with a gentle hum. Jira grabbed her children and moved deeper into the shadows. She didn't trust anyone. The ship door opened. A figure stepped out. He was tall, wearing a dark coat, his skin pale. Under the starlight, he didn't look like a Yurnak. He looked different, human. Jira had heard of humans before. They were called wild, controlled, dangerous. But she had also heard whisper stories that humans helped others. Stories that they felt emotions too. Real emotions, just like her children. The human raised his hands slowly, showing he carried no weapon. He spoke in a calm voice. "I am Captain Ray Carter. I'm not here to hurt you." Jira didn't reply. Her daughter clung to her leg, shaking. Ray stepped closer, then stopped. He opened a small box and placed it on the ground. It lit up and projected a message in several languages. Jira understood one of them. It said, "We offer food, water, and shelter. No harm, no questions." Jira's stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten in days, but still, was it a trick? Ray stepped back and waited. He didn't move fast, didn't shout, didn't force. He simply sat on a rock, looking at the stars. Minutes passed. Jira slowly walked toward the box. Children behind her. She picked up a packet of food and sniffed it. It was safe. She gave it to her children first. They ate like they hadn't eaten in weeks, because they hadn't. Ray smiled softly but didn't come closer. After a while, he said, "I've seen your kind before. Some of you ran, some of you attacked, but I've never seen one protect her children like this." Jira looked at him for the first time. Her voice cracked as she asked, "Why help us?" Ray shrugged, "Because someone once helped me, and because your people won't." "But I will." Jira's heart ached. This human, he showed more compassion in minutes than her people had in years. Still, she didn't trust easily, but her children laughed softly. For the first time in days, she heard their joy. The human offered them space in his ship. Jira hesitated. But the cold wind reminded her of what waited outside. She looked down at her children's 2 innocent lives born into a cruel world. Maybe this was their only chance. She nodded, just once. Ray smiled. Let's go home. As the ship's door closed behind them, Jira felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Space was silent, but Jira's heart was loud. She stood inside the human ship, eyes wide. Arms still holding her children close. The walls were strange metal but warm, glowing with soft blue light. There were sounds everywhere. Beeps, soft hums, voices from machines that seemed to speak. She didn't understand this place, but it felt safe. Captain Ray Carter walked ahead of them, his steps calm and slow. He didn't rush them. He spoke without fear, without anger. He spoke like someone who had seen too much pain and still chose to be kind. Jira had seen many faces in her life: judges, scientists, soldiers, traitors. But this human looked at her like she mattered, like she wasn't a mistake, like her children were not broken. That was new. That was terrifying. Ray turned back and smiled. This way, he said, pointing to a small room. Inside were 2 beds, clean clothes, and something that smelled sweet warm food. Kale ran to the bed and bounced, laughing. Lyra giggled and opened a strange box filled with toys, colorful and soft. Jira stood still, confused. Ray watched them with a soft smile. You can rest here, he said. I promise, no one will hurt you again. Jira blinked. Why? Ray didn't answer right away. He sat on a small chair and stared at the wall at a picture of a woman holding a baby. My wife, he said quietly. She died a long time ago. I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save someone else. Jira didn't know what to say. Her people never shared pain, never shared memories. They locked feelings inside like machines. But this human, he shared his wound like it was part of him, and somehow it made her trust him just a little more. Later, as the children slept, Ray gave Jira a warm drink. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ray spoke. You know, when humans first went to the stars, we were scared too. We thought we had to be strong by being cruel. But we learned something. Kindness is also strength, sometimes. More powerful than weapons. Jira listened. His words were strange, but they made sense. She had never thought of emotions as strength. Her people taught her to hide, to obey, to survive, but her children had shown her something different. They loved without fear. And now, this human did the same. Ray showed her how to use the ship's computer. The screen lit up with colors and images, maps of stars, videos from Earth, voices of human children singing. Jira felt something stir inside her. She saw mountains filled with green trees, oceans that moved like they were alive. She saw humans helping each other, crying, laughing, living with passion. She whispered, "Is this your world?" Ray nodded. "It's far, but I can take you there if you want a new life." Jira's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She simply said, "I want my children to be free." Ray looked at her and replied, "Then I promise you they will be." But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. The ship's lights blinked red. A soft alarm echoed through the hall. Ray stood up quickly and tapped his earpiece. "Ship report," he said. A calm female voice answered. "Captain Yurnok, ship approaching. Stealth mode activated, weapons hot." Jira froze. Her people had found them. They never gave up the hunt. Ray's face changed. His calm became sharp, focused, but not afraid. "Take the kids to the safe room," he told Jira. "I'll handle this." Jira grabbed her sleeping children and moved quickly. Her heart pounded. She didn't want to run again. She didn't want to lose this small piece of peace. Ray stood in the control room, fingers flying across the screen. The ship responded to him like it knew his mind. "Let's see if these Yurnok bastards remember Earth," he muttered. The screen showed the enemy ship in the distance dark. Sharp, cold, it had no emotion, no mercy. Ray sent a signal, a warning, "Back off, or I won't be kind." The Yurnok ship didn't respond, it just moved closer. Ray prepared the shields, set the weapons, and whispered to himself, "They think she's alone. They're wrong." In the safe room, Jira held her children tightly. She had trusted no one in years. Now she was trusting a human with her life, with her future, outside, in the dark of space. A warship closed in on a small human vessel, but inside that vessel, a promise had been made. A human promise, and humans, they don't break promises. In the silence of deep space, something invisible was moving. Not a sound, not a signal, not even a shadow, but the ship knew. Ray's ship, the Sparrowhawk, was alive in its own way. And tonight, it was nervous in the control room. Glowing panels blinked softly. Then suddenly, a red icon appeared. A voice echoed through the halls. Calm but urgent. "Warning. Unknown vessel approaching at stealth level 9. Captain Ray Carter stood still. Eyes fixed on the screen. He didn't blink. He knew that kind of silence. That was Yurnok technology. Cold, efficient, deadly. Only one type of ship moved that quietly. Hunter's Jira entered the room quietly. Her steps soft. She had left the children sleeping under the soft light of a glowing toy Ray had given them. Their little hands still clutching it like a treasure. But Jira couldn't sleep. She felt it too. The chill in the air. The warning in the walls. Ray looked at her and nodded once. "They found us," he said. Jira's breath caught in her throat. She walked closer, staring at the radar screen. The red dot was moving slowly, but directly toward them. "Only a Yurnok hunter ship can cloak at that level," she whispered. Ray replied, "Then it's time we uncloak some truth of our own." He pressed a few buttons, and the walls lit up with displays, cameras, weapons, shield readings. Jira was surprised. This ship was small, but powerful, more advanced than anything she'd seen before. "Is this human technology?" she asked. Ray chuckled softly. "Partly, the rest. Well, I've made friends in strange places." But this wasn't just another mission for Ray. This time, he was protecting more than just a passenger. He was protecting a family. He pulled up a file from the ship's memory and old video from his past. A younger Ray stood with a group of alien children, handing out food packets, smiling. The video ended with a message: "Protect the innocent, even when no one else will." That was Ray's code. That was his war. The screen flashed again. Enemy ship within 10 kilometers. Gira stepped forward. "We need to jam their scanners, or they'll lock on. If they charge a plasma net, we won't survive it." Ray smiled, impressed. "You know your stuff." She nodded. "I built those ships together. They worked side by side." Ray handled the shields. Shira hacked into the enemy's frequency. Her fingers moved fast. Her mind sharp, despite the fear inside her. She was no longer the outcast mother, hiding in a cave. She was the engineer, the strategist, the warrior. But then, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through, static at first. Then a voice cold and familiar. "Jira of House Rillin, surrender yourself. Your children will be taken alive. The human will be erased." Jira's hands trembled. She knew that voice. Commander Threx, the one who led the trial that exiled her. The one who called her children mistakes. The one who smiled when she screamed. Ray looked at her. "You don't have to respond." But Jira stood tall, pressed the come button, and spoke. "No, Threx, I won't run anymore. I'd rather die free than live in your cold shadows." There was a pause, then a hiss. "So, be it." Ray turned to her. "You didn't have to do that." Jira looked at him with fire in her eyes. "Yes, I did. My children are watching now, even if they're sleeping. They'll wake up in a world I choose for them, not one built by fear." Suddenly, a blast shook the ship. Ray held the controls steady. "Shields at 80%. The ship announced they've started the attack outside. Blue energy beams danced across the stars. The Yurnok hunter ship fired with cold precision. But the Sparrowhawk fought back. Ray activated a counterbeam. Blinding their scanners, Jera launched decoy pods, exploding with heat signatures to confuse the enemy. Inside the chaos, the children woke up. Kale rubbed his eyes and asked, "Is it loud because of monsters?" Jira hugged him and whispered, "No, baby. It's loud because monsters are afraid now." Ray sent one final command to the engine room. "Prepare hyperspeed jump." "Coordinates Alpha Prime," Jira asked. "Where is that?" Ray replied, "A place where we'll be safe." For now, the ship roared. Lights blinking fast. Outside, the enemy fired again, barely missing them, but it was too late. The Sparrowhawk vanished into hyperspace, leaving only starlight and silence behind as they traveled through the tunnels of light. Ray leaned back and whispered to himself, "They're not just passengers anymore. They're my mission now." Jira sat beside her children, holding their hands. She looked out the window and saw stars flying by like rivers of hope. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like an outcast. She felt like a mother. She felt human. The stars outside the window moved like rivers of silver. Inside the ship, it was quiet. Not the quiet of fear, but the quiet of healing. Jira sat with a warm cup in her hands, watching her children sleep under a soft blanket. For the first time in cycles, they slept peacefully. No alarms, no drones, no shadows waiting in the dark. Just the soft hum of the Sparrowhawk. Keeping them safe, she looked around the small living space. Books, lights, human food containers, strange. Simple things, but they held a feeling her homeworld never had. Warmth. Captain Ray Carter walked in, carrying something flat and glowing. "A human tablet." He smiled and said, "I thought it was time you saw something. Something not about war. Or death. Something about us." Jira raised an eyebrow. "Us." Ray nodded. "Humans." He tapped the screen and a video played. Children on a green hill, laughing, running, falling in the grass. One child stopped to help another who had fallen. They hugged. Jera leaned forward, stunned. "Why are they showing weakness?" Ray shook his head gently. "That's not weakness. That's connection." More videos played. A woman crying at a wedding. A man giving his coat to a stranger in the rain. Soldiers returning home to families who ran into their arms. Shira felt something twist in her chest. These people didn't hide their emotions. They shared them, proudly, openly. Her people would have erased such memories. Her council would call it emotional infection. But here, it was normal. It was life. Ray sat beside her, his voice soft. "When humans first left Earth, we thought we needed to conquer. Then we saw other worlds, other people, some more advanced, some more cruel. And we learned fast technology doesn't make you better. Compassion does." Jira asked. "Do all humans think this way?" Ray smiled sadly. "No, but enough do. Enough to make a difference." He tapped the screen again, showing a short film. Old Earth cities, once broken by war, being rebuilt by former enemies working side by side. Jera's eyes widened. "You built peace with those who hurt you." Ray nodded. "Not because we forgot, but because we chose a better path." Suddenly, the ship's AI spoke. "Navigation update complete. Arrival at Earth's outpost in 17 hours. Jera stood and walked to the window. Her reflection looked back at her, tired, marked, older than her years. But behind her, she saw Ray and her children sleeping peacefully. She wasn't alone anymore. Later, at mealtime, Ray sat with the children and offered them something round and brown. "Cookies," he said with a grin. Kale bit into one, and his eyes went wide. Lyra clapped her hands. Jira took a small bite. Cautious, it was sweet, too sweet, but somehow perfect. Ray laughed. "That's the taste of Earth childhood," Jira replied. "We had nutrition cubes." Ray made a face. "Sounds sad." Jira nodded. It was, after dinner. Ray showed them something new: music. The soft sound of a piano filled the room. Jira closed her eyes. There were no words, but somehow it spoke directly to her heart. It told a story of loss, love, and hope, all without language. Lyra leaned against her, whispering, "Mama, this music feels happy." Jira kissed her forehead. "Yes, it does." Later that night, Jira sat alone in the observation dome. Ray joined her with 2 cups of warm tea. He handed her one without a word. Together, they watched a meteor shower, bright trails of light streaking across the black sky. Jira broke the silence. "I used to think emotions were weakness, but now I think they're what saved us." Ray nodded. "They are. And they'll save more, if you let them." Jira looked at him seriously. "You didn't have to help us. Why did you really do it?" Ray paused, then replied, "Because once, someone helped me when I had nothing, and I made a promise never let someone fall alone again." Jira looked away, her voice low. "I don't know if I can ever repay you." Ray smiled. "You already did. You reminded me why I started saving people in the first place." Behind them, the stars kept moving, but inside the Sparrowhawk, something had changed. Jira wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning to live, and somewhere deep in her heart, a seed of something new had been planted. Not fear, not shame, but the first real lesson of humanity: hope. Silence is peaceful until it feels too perfect, and in the cold of space, perfect silence usually means danger. Jira stood in the Sparrowhawk's corridor, watching her reflection in the silver wall. She didn't look like the mother who once begged for mercy. She didn't look like the engineer who was thrown out of her own world. Now she looked like something else. Awake, Captain Ray was fixing a navigation panel nearby. Humming softly to himself, the children were laughing in the next room, playing with a floating ball that bounced gently through the air. Everything felt calm, almost normal, and that's what made Jira nervous. She had grown up in a world where stillness was always followed by pain, where warmth was a trap, and kindness was often the start of betrayal. The ship's AI voice broke the silence. "Incoming distress. Signal on emergency channel 94. Coordinates. Sector 7 Echo." Ray froze. He tapped the screen and pulled up the signal. It was weak, choppy, but the message was clear. A refugee vessel was under attack. Non-Uranic ship, carrying civilians. Shira stepped forward. "Could be real." Ray nodded. "Could be a trap." He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he whispered, "We help, trap or not." Jira didn't argue. She had seen Ray risk everything for people he didn't even know. And even though it scared her, she admired it. The Sparrowhawk changed course, moving toward the coordinates at full speed. The stars outside blurred, as if warning them to turn back, but they didn't. 20 minutes later, they arrived. There was no refugee ship, only silence. And then a dark shadow dropped out of hyperspace. A Urnak war cruiser, big, armed, and ready. It surrounded them like a beast closing its jaws. Ray stood at the controls. Lips tight, Jira's hands slowly moved to the emergency shield panel. But then something made her freeze. A voice came through the speakers. Not robotic, not threatening, but familiar. "Jira, daughter of House Rillan, this is your last chance." Her blood turned cold. She knew that voice. Commander Threx Ray turned to her. You know him? She nodded slowly. He was the one who branded me. The one who said my children were poison. The voice continued, surrender the human, and your children will be accepted again. This is not a negotiation. Jira felt the ground tilt. Under her feet, for a moment, she couldn't breathe. The words sounded so easy, so tempting. Give them Ray. Save your children. Go home. But she knew it was a lie. There was no home left for her. Only walls and cages. Only silence and control. She looked at Ray. He didn't speak. Didn't pressure her. He just watched. As if saying, the choice is yours. Jira walked to the comm panel. Her hand hovered over it. Her mind screamed. Then she pressed the button and said 5 words that changed everything. I'm not one of you. There was a pause, then static, then rage, then you will die with them. The cruiser powered its weapons. Ray reacted instantly, shields up. Evasive maneuvers, Jira ran to the children and pulled them to safety. The ship shook violently. As the first blast hit the outer hull, sparks flew, alarms screamed, Ray yelled. They're jamming our engines. Jira climbed the upper panel and rewired the backup thrusters. Ray shouted, Where'd you learn that? She shouted back, from the people trying to kill us. Another blast rocked the ship. Ray triggered decoy drones and flipped the Sparrowhawk into a spiral dive. Jira secured the children in a safety pod and sealed it. Kale cried, Mama, don't go. Jira kissed his forehead. I'll be right back, I promise. Ray activated the plasma cannon, firing directly at the cruiser's lower deck. The ship took damage but didn't fall. Jira joined him, feeding power from the secondary core to the shields. Ray looked at her, surprised. You were meant to lead your people. She replied, Not anymore. Now I protect mine. Then she made a choice. She sent out a pulsa signal broadcast in the Urnek's own encrypted code. It said one thing. This mother does not kneel across the galaxy. Every Urnak receiver lit up, her voice echoing into places where silence ruled for too long. The cruiser backed off, not defeated, but shaken. Ray took the chance and launched the ship into hyperspace. Everything turned white, then blue, then gone. In the quiet that followed, Ray sat beside Jira in the hallway. His face bruised, her hands burned, but they were breathing. Alive? You didn't betray me. He said. Jira replied, Because you were the first one who didn't betray me. First, behind them, the children ran into her arms. Tears, laughter, relief. Jira hugged them tight. Not just as a mother, but as a warrior. As someone who had chosen love over fear. And one? Asterisk, it started with a whisper. A single transmission. Sent across the void, a mother's voice, refusing to kneel. The Urnak Empire expected silence. Instead, they got resistance. Ray Carter's ship, the Sparrowhawk, flew like a wounded bird through the stars. Its shields flickered, systems strained, but its spirit held strong. Inside, Jira worked fast, repairing broken wires with shaking hands. Her children sat quietly, eyes wide, not with fear, but with something new, courage. Ray entered the engine bay, sweat on his face and fire in his eyes. We've got less than 10 hours before the Urnak fleet follows us. He said. Jira didn't stop working. Then we don't waste a second, she replied, outside. Space seemed quiet again, but far behind, a storm was forming. The Urnak were not used to disobedience, and Jira's voice had traveled farther than anyone expected, across dozens of systems. Others heard her words. Urnak citizens living in fear, outcasts hiding in forgotten moons, even humans in distant colonies. They heard her message, and something inside them lit up. The Urnak called it rebellion, but humans called it justice. Ray opened a secure channel to Earth's military alliance. A voice answered, sharp and cautious. This is Commander Shaw. Identify yourself, Ray replied calmly. "This is Carter. I've got a situation." He told them everything. Yara, the exile, the children, the ambush, the cruiser. He ended with one line that made the silence on the other end grow heavier. "They're coming for Earth next." Commander Shaw took a long breath. "Understood. We'll prepare." Ray turned to Jira. "We just started a war." Jira met his gaze. "No, we just refused to lose one." Within hours, ships moved, human outposts lit up, alliances activated. Old weapons were dusted off, new ones tested in silence. The Earth fleet didn't move like an empire. It moved like a family protecting its youngest, in orbit around a blue moon. Jira watched as the first wave of human ships formed a defensive wall, steel and fire, hope and fury. Ray walked beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "This time, you won't be standing alone," Jira replied. "They will come with everything they have," Ray answered. "So will we." Then the message arrived loud and clear. The Yurnak Grand Council had declared Jira a traitor and Earth a protector of corruption. Their fleet would arrive within one solar cycle. Jira sat with her children that night. She told them a story not of war, but of light, of stars that refused to fade, of people who fought not to conquer, but to protect. Kale asked, "Mama, are we the heroes now?" Jira smiled gently. "We are the ones who didn't give up." The next morning, the sky above the defense ring darkened. Thousands of Yurnak warships emerged from hyperspace, lined up like blades in the blackness. But Earth did not back down. Ray stood at the front bridge of the main battlecruiser. Shira stood beside him, no longer a guest. She wore a human-made flight suit, patched with pieces of her own technology, a symbol of two worlds becoming one. Commander Shah's voice echoed through the comms. "All units, engage on my mark." But before the battle began, a new signal appeared. Jira's screen lit up a private message, sent from within the Yurnak fleet. Text only, one line. "We are with you, Mother," Jira gasped. Ray looked at her, confused. She explained, "Others. Other exiles, other silent voices." There in the fleet, Ray smiled. "Well then, it's just got interesting." The countdown began, 10 seconds to the largest battle either side had seen in decades. Ray whispered, "Whatever happens, I'm glad you're here," Jira replied, "and I'm not running anymore." The final seconds struck, engines roared, plasma cannons lit up the darkness, ships collided, shields clashed, missiles exploded like stars. But inside it all, something greater moved. Not ships, not soldiers, but change. Because this time, a human stood beside an alien mother, not to fight for power, but to fight for peace. For freedom, for family. The human war had begun. But it wasn't a war of hate. It was a war of heart, and heart, as every human knows, can turn the tide of any battle. Smoke floated through the stars like ancient ghosts. Pieces of ships drifted slowly, silently, as if space itself had stopped to breathe. The battle was over, but the war inside everyone was just beginning. Jira stood at the viewing deck of the medical cruiser, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from everything she had survived. Below her, Earth came into view, blue and full of life. A planet once called small by powerful empires, but today it had done something no empire could. It had made the cruel retreat. It had made the broken feel whole again. Behind her, Captain Ray Carter walked in, holding 2 steaming cups. He handed one to her with his usual quiet strength. No words, no speeches, just the warmth of someone who had been there when it mattered. Jira whispered. "We won," Ray replied. "We didn't win by fighting. We won by refusing to break." Across the galaxy, something had shifted. The Yurnak fleet had pulled back after the uprising within their own ranks. Ships once cold and loyal had turned, not because of weapons, but because of her voice. Jira, once marked with exile, had become a symbol. The mother who spoke, the outcast who fought with her heart at Earth's spaceport. People gathered to welcome the survivors, humans, aliens, children, some laughing, some crying, all free. The Sparrowhawk landed one last time, its hull scarred, its engines humming with pride. Jira stepped out, holding Kale in one arm and Lyra's hand in the other. They wore clothes stitched by human hands. But they walked like royalty, not because of titles, but because they had earned their place in the stars. A reporter asked Ray, "Captain, who are they?" Ray smiled, "Their family." Jira was offered a seat in the new Peace Council, a place to guide the future between Earth and the stars. She said yes, but with one condition: no titles, just truth. She worked with former enemies. She shared stories instead of commands. She rebuilt what was broken. Not with power, but with patience. Ray, as always, refused medals. He returned to his ship, not to run, but to find others still waiting for rescue. Before he left, he said one last thing to Jira. "You don't need me anymore," she replied. "Maybe not, but the stars do." Years passed. Kale grew into a scientist. Lyra became a diplomat between species, both children of war, both builders of peace. One day, Jera stood beneath Earth's golden sky, Lyra beside her, and Kale, watching from a screen orbiting Mars. A celebration was held in her honor for the voice that changed two worlds. She didn't give a long speech. She simply said, "I was never meant to be a hero. I just wanted my children to live." And in the crowd, someone whispered, "And because of that, we all did, that night." She sat alone in her garden. The stars above looked closer than ever. She remembered the cold caves, the drones, the fear. She remembered the first time she saw Ray Carter, a human, with a kind face and a simple promise. She smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because she had made it through, and now, a new world had truly begun. Not one built by empires, but by a mother, a stranger, and a choice. To love when it was easier to hate, to protect when it was easier to run, to speak when silence was safer. The galaxy would never forget her name, Jira, the mother who gave the stars a second chance.